Okay. Okay, well, I'm not hearing anybody say anything, so I'm getting nervous now.
Yeah, we're here. We're here,
Can you hear
Rabbi.
me?
Yeah, we hear. Peace of the Lord be with
Anything.
you, Rabbi.
We hear you.
Oh boy.
5 by 5.
All right. Change speakers now. Now can you hear me?
Hear you just fine.
Okay,
Yes,
good.
we can hear you.
Yes.
All right, good deal. Because I had hit the wrong button, or I hadn't. Well, I didn't hit the wrong button. I just hadn't hit the right button to get my speakers talking to me. That's all. So, all right. So we're 1 minute past 7. I'm just going to wait another minute because there's some more folks joining in tonight. And we got someone new. We'll welcome in to Mark Bermudez. Uh, welcome to the class. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get cranking because I do have a lot of words to get through tonight here to get it all done. And also, I just wanted to um, kind of float this one out to you. To ask what class, what book did we want to go to next? And I'm kind of thinking about going to Jeremiah. I've never taught that particular one, so I was thinking about Jeremiah. Anybody had any thoughts on that? Let me know.
I'd vote for that, Steve.
Say again, Alan.
I said I would vote for that.
Okay, Joey and Joseph.
Yeah, Jeremiah sounds good.
Okay, all right. Anybody else that wanted to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I like it too. That's a good book.
All right, good deal.
Yeah,
Good deal.
Me too.
All right, well we'll do that, and I've got enough weeks now to get some of my reference books ordered and so forth, and actually get them read before the class starts. So that's a good deal. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. We've got 19, and also I see Jerry Hale is on here tonight, and I haven't. He's so busy with keeping the Washington D.C. and those folks up there straight that he doesn't often get a chance to come visit with us. So
Good to be here, Steve. Thank you.
I was just thinking about it today. I saw your post today, your email to me today, Jerry, and I was just thinking about it. We've known each other for what, 57 years or something like that, since 1968.
Right.
And yeah, there's several guys, Alan and Joseph. All we've been together for a long, long time.
But we
So
have to say, Rabbi, you're a little older than the rest of us.
Not me.
not Jerry. Jerry's older than me. Come on now. I was his indentured servant assistant for that first year, remember?
Good times.
All right, good deal. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started here tonight. And again, welcome everybody in tonight. And let me begin with the blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lasok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who sanctifies us with his commandments and commands us to engross ourselves in words of Torah. All right, now, since we do have some visitors here, let me give you the rules of the game. I'm going to mute everybody, but that doesn't mean anything. All that means is that I don't get background noise. But if you want to say something during the course of what I'm talking about, or ask a question, or whatever, just go ahead and unmute yourself and say away. I try to watch this thing. I've got it set up so that I can watch when somebody unmutes themselves, and hopefully I'll catch it. And so we'll try to catch that. And if I don't, then just go ahead and say, "Hey, stop," or something, or "I got something to say," or something like that. So just to let you know, I've got like 3 screens here set up to do this class, and somebody asked me, "Well, why do you have 3 screens to do the class?" Now, the reason is I don't have room for 4 screens. So that's why what I do here. All right, so let's go ahead we're looking at chapter 9 here. And oh yeah, today is Pearl Harbor Day, in case you guys are history nuts like I am. And I noticed that for the first time they had something going on the USS Arizona, the state park there, or the national park there, and they had a memorial service with no survivors of Pearl Harbor attack in attendance, and that's the first time that had happened. So they're getting on up there in years, and there's still a few survivors, but boy, it's getting few and far between. So anyway, going ahead with our class here tonight. This chapter 9, we see a definite shift in the way the book is written. The perspectives that in this chapter are much more eschatological, end times oriented, and the tone is a little bit darker because we're talking about judgment against the nations and the role of we talk about the role of the region and the northern region, which was Israel, the divided kingdom that's sometimes called Ephraim. And so then we talk about rejection of the leadership and the battle of the day of the Lord and so forth. All these things take place from chapter 9 through chapter 14. So tonight we're of course going to just only hit chapter 9 if we get all through it. So let me go ahead and read it. The burden of the word of Adonai is against the land of Hadrach and will rest with Damascus. For the eyes of men and all the tribes of Israel are toward Adonai, and also upon Hamat bordering it, and upon Tyre and Sidon, though they are very shrewd. Okay, so what does all this mean? Zechariah 9, 1 and 2 there I read. It announces God's judgment against the northern nations, Hadrach, Damascus, Hamat, Tyre, and Sidon. All of those were north of, kind of north and west of Judah and Jerusalem. And so historically, this prophecy aligns with Alexander the Great's conquest as he's moving down from Greece and through Asia Minor and down toward Egypt. And the uh, theologically, though, it emphasizes that all nations, even the most fortified and the wealthy, are subject to God's authority, that Israel's eyes must look to him for protection. And we see in this particular instance with Alexander the Great, the story there, that Israel did, according to Josephus anyway, they went to the Lord for protection, and God changed hearts and lives and minds, and he spared Jerusalem a lot of heartburn. So what we got here, I wanted to start out with that word because it says the burden of the word of Adonai. Now that word is Masah, and it means it can mean mostly it would mean an oracle or something, pronouncement, and also can mean to lift up. And so as like you were saying something and you lifted up your voice to say it, so you raised your voice to say it, like a street preacher would do. He would get out there and speak much more forcefully, and we call it our outdoor voice when the microphones don't work at the synagogue. So, this to get a little perspective, and I think I put it down here, and I'll go back to it. Hadrach is it's a city in northern Syria, and it's mentioned in Assyrian records, and but we don't really know where it is. It's mostly a region. I guess would be a more correct uh, correct description of it. And then you had Damascus. Of course, everybody knows where Damascus is. It's still there today, and Aram, which it was the capital of Aram, but we call it Syria today. Long-time rival of Israel, and then Assyria came through and conquered Damascus, and then later on Alexander the Great. Now Hamat is a fortress city, also north of Damascus, and it was conquered by Alexander's campaigns. I think I got a map down there too of all of that. You can see, and I'll pull it up in a sec. And so then, of course, you had Tyre and Sidon. We've already talked about them, in our other classes in the last couple of years. You know that they were very wealthy trading cities, and they gained their wealth through maritime trade, basically. And Tyre was considered, pretty much impenetrable or unconquerable. And because they had, the Babylonians had come up against them, the Assyrians had come up against them, and so they were just sitting offshore. And here's the military campaigns of Alexander is going through, from where he started out in Macedonia, and then it came on down, made his way into, and he had the siege of Tyre. Now that one is okay. I'm going to get to that in the next couple of slides, but that was a one that they figured out. Oh man, now we're impenetrable. We can do anything and everything that we want because nobody can conquer us. And so anyway, this judgment that is against them in verses 1 and 2 against the nations it is for these particular nations, just Syria and then down on the coast with what we call Gaza today, which was Philistia in those days, and but it could mean it's really a pronouncement against all of the nations around Israel and just nations in general, the goyim, the nations that are arrayed against Israel, even if they're not neighboring countries. And then it says the eyes toward God. That little phrase there, that for the eyes of men and all the tribes of Israel are toward Adonai. Now that means that they were looking, or can mean that they were looking to God for their protection. And there are other commentators that I read that said, "Oh no, what this means is that all the nations are looking at Israel and what's going to happen to them." That doesn't make as much sense to me as the idea of these people are looking to God for their protection. And the we'll see that in a second why I think that is, okay. And so let's go ahead with verse 3 then. Tyre built herself a fortress and heaped up silver like dust and fine gold like dirt in the streets. And so what they're talking about there is, you know, Tyre was a very wealthy Phoenician port city, and it was very well known for being impenetrable. They had walls that they said were as much as 150 feet high. That's a lot of brick and mortar for a wall back in those days, uh, and so yeah, nobody was able to penetrate them because it was an island just offshore, not very far offshore. I think it was 800 or 900 meters from what we would call old Tyre. Well, this is new Tyre, which is the island, and it had really nice harbors around the island, so that no matter what the season and whether the winds and the waves were coming from whatever direction, there was a harbor that the boats could go in there and find shelter and offload their cargo and then get back out to sea. So, and they had amassed such wealth that the Bible here in Zechariah says, yeah, the gold dust that they had was just like the dirt on the streets. It was so ubiquitous with Tyre that it was nothing. They had gold everywhere, and so. But what happened though is that Alexander came through and he conquered it. It was after a 7-month siege, and how he did it was he built a causeway from the ruins because Babylon Nebuchadnezzar had gone through and destroyed the old city of Tyre. It was called Old Tyre, and on the mainland. And so Alexander took all of the rubble from the destroyed city and started just piling it on the beach, and kept getting closer and closer and closer to um, the actual island. And so, these guys really thought that they were invincible, and that nothing could stop them. But the Lord had declared that there was happen, and so therefore it did happen, and it just illustrates the futility of trusting in human strength and wealth. And so it sets the kind of the stage here for later on in the chapter, talking about the reign of the Messiah that's coming, and how his reign is based on humility and not on military power or commercial power. And so here is a picture of Tyre and this horrendous wall that they had. Now this island of Hercules, yeah, I was over there. Well, there was an earthquake many, thousands of years ago, and that earthquake caused that island to just sink below the sea. But Alexander he just started stacking all of the rubble, and he got out there to where then he could get his siege engines in place, and then they could then throw these big stones up against the wall and breach the walls, and finally they were able to conquer Tyre. All right, so. I don't know if anybody wanted to add some of more historical stuff on there um, for that. Okay, number 4, chapter of 9:4 here. Behold, the Lord will impoverish her and destroy her power on the sea, while she will be devoured by fire. So again, we see that Tyre was a very powerful port city, thought they were invincible. And in fact, in Ezekiel 28:2, uh, Ezekiel reports that Tyre boasted that I am a God, I sit in the seat of gods in the heart of the seas. And so that's consummate arrogance, actually, for a city to put themselves in that position. And even though they had resisted and nobody had been able to successfully besiege them, I think Nebuchadnezzar tried it for 13 years without success. And then when Alexander came along, he said, well, I can't do it with boats and stuff. I'll just build a causeway out there to it. And there you go. It took him 7 months, and he conquered Tyre. And so that's why you see that where it says that the Lord will impoverish her and destroy her power on the sea. And so there you have it. From then on, they were not able to wield the same kind of commercial power that they had for so many, actually maybe centuries, that Tyre had been quite a force to be reckoned with from their commercial prowess. And so even something that's invincible, impenetrable, it's nothing when God says, no, you're going down. And so uh, what did God say? He doesn't like a prideful spirit. And so there you go. Tyre, the people of Tyre, were so arrogant and proud that the Lord humbled them very, very hugely. And so here's a comparison here between the power from commercial or military, and here, commercial power of Tyre plus the military power of Alexander the Great clashing, and one of them taking, succeeding. And yet, later in the chapter, we're going to talk about how that the Messiah will be coming, but he will be coming as an empire of peace and humility, and not out of power or might. So, verses 5 and 6. Ashkelon will see it and fear. Gaza will writhe in pain, as will Ekron, because her hope will dry up. The king will perish from Gaza, and Ashkelon will be uninhabited. A mongrel people will live in Ashdod, and I will cut off the Philistines' pride. All right, so these two verses, they foretell the downfall of these Philistine cities that they'd been very, very powerful, very influential in their ability to just inflict pain on Israel for generations. You know, David fought them and had problems with them. Then on down through the kings of Judah, all of them had problems with Philistines. And even before then, before David, remember it was Samson had his dealings with the Philistines. So they had been a problem for Israel for 1,000 years, and so here in the space of relatively few months, just a few months, um, these cities were destroyed, and along with it, the power of of Philistia, the Philistines. And in fact, after Alexander the Great's campaign there, uh, Philistine was never a power again, and I think the one that lasted the longest probably was the city of Gaza. It lasted 2 months or resisted 2 months. Well, once Alexander the Great conquered it, then he executed their king, and he enslaved or killed all of the inhabitants of Gaza, and then he repopulated that with other people from his conquests and other people from other areas, so that like these other cities, Ashkelon and Ekron, they were terrified, and then Ashdod was also defeated, and they were resettled with mixed populations, you know, Greeks, Macedonians, and Turks, and other ones too. So that's kind of fulfills the prophecy there that Philistia would then become a mongrel people. Okay, now that's kind of what would you say, politically incorrect today to call people mongrels. But they were, you know, half breeds or not purebreds or whatever. The Hebrew word mamzer, that we translate mongrel, it to say it nicely, it talks about illegitimate offspring. But I think what you would say today was, okay, no, this they're going to be populated with bastards, is what the language really calls out, and people that have no legitimate claim to national anything. These were just people without a nation. They stuck them in there, and that ended the end of the Philistines, and they were never again a recognized people. So, any comments or questions on that so far? Okay,
You
yeah,
might
Carl.
want to notice that after the Simon Bar Kokhba revolt, then the province of Judah then was changed. They did change the name too. So that you have the Palestinians today, that's the Latin, the way I understand it, is the Latin for the Philistines. So it's a complete nonsense to say that you have Palestinians, because
Yeah.
they just named them after a group that Alexander the Great had destroyed hundreds of years earlier.
Right. And that it was definitely by the Romans. That was a deliberate affront to the Jewish people, because their enemies had been destroyed for, like you said, hundreds of years, and so they were just putting this back and putting a name on it, so that um, it would basically trying to erase the Jewish people from the area. Well, it didn't work, of course, and it maybe it would be akin to the renaming of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. Perhaps I'm not so sure, and I don't want to be making a political statement here, but just as a matter of fact, there have been 151 hurricanes that have come into the Gulf of Mexico over the years. And since Trump renamed the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, there hasn't been one single hurricane enter the Gulf of America. Okay, so do with that what you will. Or either that or just put your head over like that and says, oh man, another rabbi joke. All right. Vicky.
Question. Yes. Question. So just a kind of a thought question. So what we see here, that, that you just read and everything, is this is a continuation of what we're seeing in the news today?
It's very similar. I mean, if you look at the history of the region, these people were basically ethnically the people that are living there calling themselves Palestinians. That wasn't even a word until Yasser Arafat basically invented it for all of these people who were so-called refugees from Jordan or wherever. Basically, they belonged in Jordan or Syria or Egypt or whatever, but they settled down there, and there is no benefit for any of the Arab countries to legitimize these people and allow them into their countries. They don't want them because they know that if they do that, you're going to have people like Hamas and the Palestinian Authority and like the multitudes of terrorists that live all throughout the so-called occupied territories. Well, yeah, they're occupied all right there, but they're occupied by phonies instead of allowing Israel to go ahead and populate that land. And little by little, Israel is encroaching and pushing the so-called Palestinians out of the region. So eventually, of course, as we know, we've read the back of the book, and so we know that eventually all that land will be Israel from the Wadi al-Arish, which is called the River of Egypt, which is basically the southern border of Israel today, very close to that, all the way up, it says, to the Euphrates. So that's a big swath. Means basically it means that Lebanon will be swallowed up by Israel. Most of Syria will be swallowed up by Israel. So we know that that's going to happen eventually because the Bible said it will, and that's what it means. So yeah, we're seeing little bits and pieces of it even today play out. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
All right, verse 7 says, I will remove the blood from his mouth, forbidden food from between his teeth. Whoever is left will be a remnant for our God. He will be like a leader in Judah, and Ekron will be like a Jebusite. Now, this is a strange one here. So let me kind of fill it in for you. We're going to talk about the blood in the mouth or in the teeth or whatever. What that refers to is the dietary practices of the Philistines and the people around them, that they would slaughter animals and not bleed and not drain the blood off of them so as to make them acceptable kosher kills. And the Lord had said many times, do not, he said, the life is in the blood. Don't drink the blood. Don't eat the blood. And so these other countries took great pains to keep as much blood in the animal as possible, and not to bleed them out like a kosher butcher would, or even when I slaughter animals out here on my place. I take great pains to make sure that they cut the jugular vein or whatever vein it is, where it kind of pokes out there, and you slice it and let them bleed out as much as possible. And same with like chickens and things like that too. You slice their neck so that they're still pumping blood while they're still alive, and they bleed out rather than chopping their head off with an axe. That's not a kosher way to do it either. So anyway, that's what they're talking about, the blood. And then it talks about their sacrificial rituals involving blood. And so that the abominations there it points to idol sacrifices and other detestable pagan rites. And so he's promising to strip all these practices away, and he's going to purify the Philistines from their idolatry, kind of like what happened when Israel went to Babylon, and they came back and never ever again went into idolatry like they had before. So what is interesting here, though, is that it says that he's going to keep a remnant for himself. And so a remnant will remain for our God. Now, this, it kind of echoes the theme of a remnant theology that we find throughout Scripture, where God keeps a portion of people for himself, so that even though Israel was pretty close to being wiped out by the Assyrians, by the Babylonians, God always kept a remnant. And that's why when the nation of Israel in the northern kingdoms, when they were defeated and sacked in 722 BCE by the Assyrians, people say, well, there you go. There's the 10 lost tribes. The tribes were lost, and we don't know whatever happened to them. But no, they were taken into captivity. But then when the Babylonians then took over from the Assyrians, the Jews just kind of reconstituted themselves in those areas, because that was basically the same area, Shushan and those places up there around Babylon, on the Euphrates and the Tigris rivers. The people of the northern tribes reunited with their brethren on the southern tribe, because they all had something now in common. They were exiles. And so people knew from which tribe they came, and so they were never lost. And plus, even if they did, God knows all of the people and their DNA, and how much of a percentage of this and that and the other that they are. So God's got it all under control, and the 10 lost tribes were never lost, and they did not move to England and become the British Empire. So as the British Israelism that was popular back in the 1800s would have said. So now the other part there, where it's talking about he will be like a leader in Judah, and Ekron will be like a Jebusite. That tells me that this change in the people of Philistia is going to be so complete that eventually they're going to be so absorbed into Israel that people with that heritage, or from that birthplace anyway, would be so assimilated into Israel that they could be leaders within Israel. And that the Jebusites, if you remember, the Jebusites were the original inhabitants of the area, the city of Jerusalem, and how that Israel under Saul had even before that they had attacked Jerusalem, burned a lot of it, but the Jebusites still hung on, and they were still there when David came along, and King David, and so he actually conquered Jerusalem and got rid of the Jebusites. And so they were those that were not killed, they assimilated, and they no longer were a political or an ethnic entity at all. And so that's what they're saying here, that Ekron, part of Philistia, would then be like the Jebusites that were just so watered down and diluted and assimilated that they just vanished as a people and as a people group. And so even the Jebusites, who were enemies of Judah, would become citizens, as it were. All right, so going ahead with verse 8. But I will camp around my house against marauding forces. No oppressor will overrun them again, for now I watch with my own eyes. All right, so here is a here's a promise from God that he's going to protect his people, and that no oppressor would prevail against them, because the Lord himself will encamp around them as a guard. Now, the problem with these kind of prophecies is that they're a dual prophecy. It can mean for a time period, an immediate time period, or a near time period, and it can also mean for in a far, far future, that like the millennium, that it could be playing out there. So, but at this point, God says, "Okay, I'm gonna protect you." And so here you had Alexander the Great coming down here and just conquering whatever, I mean, whoever, whatever. And if I remember my history correctly, Alexander the Great had a pretty good track record when it came to battles. I can't, off the top of my head, I can't think of a single battle that he actually lost. And there may be, because it's been too many years since those courses, Naval War College. So what can I say? All right. But he's going to protect them, and he's going to protect his people from their oppressors. Now, a lot of people, they'll say that this is this is all connected to Alexander the Great's campaigns, where he came down and he hit all of these nations, Damascus and the cities down in Gaza, and then he went on down to Egypt and conquered everything that was valuable to conquer in Egypt, and then he worked his way back up. And so when Alexander the Great was besieging Tyre, he sent a letter to the high priest or the king or high priest there in Judah, asking for help, men and supplies. He needed some resupply. And the high priest answered him and said, "We cannot do that, because we had already made a promise to Darius not to assist you." Well, that put Alexander the Great in kind of a fit, but he was busy with the siege of Tyre. And then he got busy going down to Egypt and messing around there. So it was a year or two later that he finally made his way back up here to Jerusalem in that area. So all these other nations and city-states were all falling by the way. And so here's what was recorded. I'm gonna just read it out. What Josephus wrote, and he said, in Jadus Jadus, I don't know how you pronounce it, the high priest, when he heard that about the nations falling, was in an agony and under terror, not knowing how he should meet the Macedonians, Alexander the Great, since the king was displeased at his foregoing disobedience. He therefore ordained that the people should make supplications and join with him in offering sacrifice to God, whom he besought to protect that nation and to deliver them from the perils that were coming upon them. Whereupon God warned him in a dream, which came upon him after he had offered sacrifice, that he should take courage, adorn the city, open the gates, that the rest should appear in white garments, but that he and the priest should meet the king in the habits proper to their order, without the dread of any ill consequences which the providence of God would prevent. And said, when Jadis understood that Alexander was not far from the city, he went out in a procession with the priest and the multitude of the citizens. So this is what Josephus had written about the history, and so then I, I was reading another commentary on this whole thing. It says, and some guy says, "Well, of course we know that this story never happened. This was just something that Josephus made up." And why would Josephus make it up? I don't know. And why this guy decided that it couldn't have happened that way. But it's an interesting departure from the way that the Israelites, both the northern and southern kingdom, had approached their battles before, and their conquerors. They were always looking to these earthly alliances, or some kind of a trade-off with these various other nations, and whereas God said, if you'll just ask me, I will protect you. I will take care of you. But they wouldn't do it. Well, this high priest did just exactly that and got the people to pray for some relief. They needed protection. And so what happened there is that then Alexander came up through, and the way the story goes is that he also had a dream about Jerusalem, and when he got there, that the story goes that they showed him a scroll from Daniel that talks about how that a he goat, a Grecian he goat, had destroyed and trampled the ram of Babylonian empire. And so, of course, Alexander the Great looked at that and says, "Oh yeah, that must be me." And so he was so taken with that he told the people of Jerusalem, "You just carry on with what you're doing, and we're going to go on up and do some more conquering." And so they never besieged Jerusalem at all, and I basically just allowed them to carry on with what they were doing before. So incredible story, actually. And so going ahead to verse 9, "Rejoice greatly, daughter of Zion. Shout, daughter of Jerusalem, behold, your king is coming to you, a righteous one bringing salvation. He is lowly, riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey." All right, so this is a message of hope for Israel, that it announces the coming Messiah, and it portrays him as an humble yet victorious king. And he comes not with military might and all that stuff, but with righteousness and salvation. So this verse, if you remember, it was quoted in Matthew 21:5 and John 12:15 about Yeshua coming into Jerusalem. And I went ahead and wrote those down here. It says, "Say to the daughter of Zion, see, your king is coming to you, humble and sitting on a donkey, a colt, the foal of a donkey. Fear not, daughter of Zion. Look, your king is coming, sitting on a donkey's colt." So that was quoted then by John and Matthew as a fulfillment of this prophecy that we see here in Zechariah. And so in those days in the A&E, that's the ancient Near East, okay? In the A&E, kings who came in peace to another city state or something, they would ride in on a donkey. That's kind of telling everybody, okay, I'm coming in here as a peaceful person. We have no intentions of trying to make war against you at all. So, but if kings were coming to try to conquer you and you were, you were at war with these kings, they would be riding on their war horses, on their big horses that were armored and so forth, not some little donkey where your feet almost drag the ground as you're walking, as the donkey is riding along. But that's what Yeshua rode into Jerusalem at his what they call Palm Sunday nowadays, but when he came in to Jerusalem right before the Passover. So, verse 10, I will banish chariots from Ephraim and horses from Jerusalem, and the war bow will be broken. He will speak shalom to the nations. His rule will extend from sea to sea, from the river to the ends of the earth. So this verse, it portrays the Messiah's reign as one of peace, not war, and he extends his dominion universally across the earth. Okay, this idea of the sea to sea, it's more than just from the Mediterranean Sea to the Sea of Galilee. It's much more than that. It encompasses basically, from the Mediterranean, the Atlantic, all the way over to the Pacific, and then from the river to the ends of the earth. Well, there again, it's the river, meaning I guess in this particular instance, it would be the River Jordan, because that was the eastern boundary. But it could also be any one of these rivers that were crucial to life back in those days. And so, but basically it says from the river to the ends of the earth. So I like to think that this is probably talking about the Jordan River, which is in Israel. So if you look at this, the chariot, the horse, the battle bow, those are all symbols of the instruments of war. And so their removal then signifies that the Messiah's kingdom, his kingship, is not going to be advanced by violence or military conquest. Now we know that when he comes back at the second coming, he's going to destroy the armies of the nation that are surrounding Jerusalem and surrounding Israel. But it's going to be, he will do that, said, with the power of his word, and it's not going to be leading a vast army against these people who are against Israel. So you see that in Micah 5, 10 and 11, and then in Hosea 1:7, we see that God promises deliverance without reliance on weapons, not by power, but by my spirit, says the Lord. All right. So, and he says, Messiah speaks peace to the nations. Okay. That means that, his reign is going to bring reconciliation, not only to Israel, but also to the Gentiles, so that the Gentiles that are fighting each other, well, they're not gonna be fighting each other anymore. And it's kind of incredible. Even in today's world, you don't think about how many wars there are that are going on. I really didn't didn't think about it too much until I heard on the news, I think it was today or yesterday, where it's talking about where Trump had signed a peace treaty between uh, a couple of African nations that they had been at war with each other for 30 years. And so he got in there and got them to talking to each other and figured out, well, both of them would be a whole lot bit better off if they would just not fight each other and use those resources to build up their own countries. And so, but I think that's like the ninth conflict that he has moderated and got people to say, okay, yeah, we're tired of fighting. We don't want to do this anymore. But in the case of the Messiah, he's just going to speak at peace and everybody's going to just comply because of his power, and he is he's the one. He's going to be the man in that case, and the Messiah will just speak peace, and people will have to obey. There's nothing that they can do about it, and so here again we see that. Uh, this idea, back in verse 9 there, where the Messiah comes in as a humble king riding on the donkey, and then verse 10 here expands that image, showing that his humility leads to peace all over the place and not conquest. And so this messianic kingdom will be one of peace, and we've talked about it so many times before that um, to me, it's great fun trying to sit there and think and listen and think about what is the millennium going to really be like. The engineer in me wants to say, okay, well, what about the roads, the power structure, the all of these different things? It's those are still going to have to be maintained, and it's not all of a sudden um, a supernatural utopia where things there's just energy there, but nobody's causing the energy and so forth. No, there's still going to be, I believe, infrastructure and things that people will take care of. There's still going to be hospitals, there'll still be doctors and so forth. So going ahead,
Hey,
verse.
Rabbi,
Yes, sir.
we got you pinned in as a rabbi, so don't think about anything else.
Well, I just I do that a lot of times. Just think about what's going to be in the millennium. I mean, what things are going to have to be um, continued on, as it were. And so, yeah, that's I get a kind of a kick out of thinking about some of those things and things that make you want to go, hmm. So, all right, verses 11 and 12. As for you, by the blood of your covenant, I will release your prisoners from the waterless pit. Return to the stronghold, you prisoners of hope. Today I declare that I will restore twice as much to you. Okay, now this one, again, this verse here is it speaks of God's covenant faithfulness. The covenant that the blood and the covenant that they're talking about there was the covenant that God made with the Israelites at Mount Sinai. The one that he says, well, if you'll do all of this stuff and obey my rules and commandments, I will bless you. And the people said, oh, yeah, we will do all of that. And then they turned right around and didn't. But God was always faithful. And so he said, okay, we're going to bring this back and going to release your prisoners from the waterless pit. Now, to me, I see, and when I think of waterless pit, I think of when Joseph was thrown down into an old cistern or something like that, and he couldn't get out. I've been in several cisterns in throughout all up and down throughout Israel. And some of them, yeah, you could kind of climb your way out of, but other ones, if you didn't have a ladder or something, you couldn't physically get out of it by yourself. And some of these cisterns actually still held water. The one in Masada still holds water. But then there were other ones that I went into, and they were just a very, the plaster is still there after 2 or 3 thousand years, and you just don't climb up that, especially if it had been wet. It would have been slippery, and so you couldn't get out of it. But that's what I think of when they talk about the waterless pit. There's no escape. There's no way out of it, but God. There's no way out of it, but for the hand of God pulling you out. And so, traditionally in Jewish literature, the waterless pit refers to Babylonian exile, and so this deliverance that we're talking about here is a dual deliverance. It is both it's both a physical deliverance that you remember when the Lord comes in and at the second time, Israel is going to be in the fight of their life, the existential battle for their very existence. And that's when Yeshua is going to come in and physically rescue them. And I believe that that's where possibly that Paul was thinking about when he says, and all Israel will be saved by Yeshua. And that was a physical salvation from total destruction. And so, but it's also going to be a spiritual redemption or spiritual deliverance in the end time, in the millennial period, where Israel will not only be rescued physically, but they're going to be rescued spiritually, because they're going to see what they did, and like we saw in our parsha last week, where God changed Esau's mind about killing Jacob. Well, and then possibly now in this with Alexander the Great, God possibly changing his mind so that he didn't want to destroy Jerusalem. And so it will be those kind of spiritual victories that we can see in this future time with Israel. And I think it's talking about it where it says, and the double restoration there. It's talking about, not doubling of money or wealth or anything like that, but a dual restoration, physical and spiritual. That's the way I read that anyway. All right, so verse 13, I will bend Judah as my bow and fill it with Ephraim. I will rouse your sons, O Zion, against your sons, O Greece. I will wield you like a warrior's sword. Okay, the imagery here is really, really great. And so, Judah's the bow, Ephraim as the arrow. That, to me, that speaks of both the northern kingdom, southern kingdom, Israel, Judah, coming together and being one nation again, like they are today. I don't think you'll find anybody that in Israel, any Jew in Israel said, saying, well, we don't associate with Jews that come from the Galilee or up there in the northern part of Israel, because they, 2,000, 2,500 years ago, they were conquered by the Assyrians, and we don't associate with them. Now they still do with the Samaritan people from Samaria. That's kind of a deal where they consider the Samaritans, or the people of Samaria, that area, as not really kosher. And it's a fact that the Samaritans do have their own rituals, and they still offer sacrifices there on Mount Gerizim even today, which Israel doesn't do. I mean, down in Jerusalem, they don't do that. So, but anyway, where he's talking about be ready for Greece. The word that is used there is Yavan, and it was used throughout the Bible to indicate the people of Greece. And so then it could be that what they're talking about here is going to use them as a weapon or sword, that it's the liberation of Israel and Judah from the clutches of the Seleucids. That was the Seleucids, and under Antiochus Epiphanes, they were the successors. There were four successors to Alexander the Great's empire. They divided up. Had Egypt at one, and Antiochus Epiphanes was another one up in Assyria, the old Assyrian Empire, and then you had one up in Macedonia, that area, Greece, and I think the other one was Asia Minor, Turkey. But those four entities, and it was the one in Assyria, Antiochus Epiphanes, that was against the Israelites or the Jews at that time, and so it could mean that they were successful against the Seleucids, or these Syrian Greeks, as it were, and it could also just as easily and concurrently speak of the end time where Israel will be again on the ropes, and God's going to come in and heal their land. He's going to come in there and clean up, just destroy all the people that are against him, and that turn Israel into a powerful instrument of victory. Well, we see that already today. And it started back in 1948 when Israel became a nation. All the Arab nations came against them, and Israel had 5 old, broken down airplanes that could barely shoot, and they defeated all of the air forces of the Arab countries threw at them. Then later on in the 73 war, the tanks of Egypt were against them, and no way humanly possible could Israel have won that, but God. He's the one that brought the victory. So anyway, going ahead, we need to finish this off because I'm already way over. 14 and 15. Then Adonai will be seen over them as his arrow flashes like lightning. Adonai Elohim will blow the shofar and march in whirlwinds of the south. Adonai Svaot will defend them. They will consume and conquer their sling stones. They will drink and roar as with wine, and be filled like a bowl, like the corners of the altar. All right. So in this particular case, this portrays now God as a divine warrior, and he's going to personally intervene for his people, and the imagery of the lightning and the trumpet blast and the winds, just it kind of emphasizes his power, just the chaos of war that is going to be God protecting his people, and delivering them from all of the things that are against them. And so you'll see that it's going to be happening. Did it happen yet on the? I don't think it has happened yet on that scale, but I think it will happen. This is a future thing. So that he'll crush his people's enemies, slings and stones, so that you got David and Goliath reversed. Now, this is kind of interesting in that some of these commentators said, okay, what it says there, where it says they will consume and conquer, with some say conquer with sling stones, and then there are others that said no, they're going to come in and consume and stomp out or crush these sling stones, basically the rocks, the stones that were used as weapons against Israel. God is going to come in here and basically destroy them. And so, yeah, I kind of like that interpretation better than the ones that yeah, these people are going to come up and they're gonna conquer with slingshots. It just didn't make as much sense. And so, but then they said, well, they'll drink and roar with as with wine and be filled like a bowl, like the corners of the altar. Well, so what that is that roar as with wine, and so that to me speaks of a celebration that the people of Israel are going to engage in after their victory against their enemies. And so I don't know, roar as with wine. I don't know if any of you, well, those of us that were sailors and traveled all over the place on ships and things like that, we know what it is when some people get a little bit too much sauce and they become very rowdy drunks. And so, most of us have seen that kind of stuff in my younger years, um, having to do shore patrol in Lisbon, Portugal. I had my fill of trying to get rowdy drunks back to the ship without getting either one of us hurt. So it's yeah, good times. So that's what they're talking about there. The roar as with wine, and then the filled like a bowl. This goes back for it's a big change here. You may not see it, but it's a big change from the drunken celebration of victory thou to worship, because the bowl is talking about the bowl that they used to catch the blood from the sacrifice animals and then pour it around the corners of the altar. So we've gotten a complete cycle there of the celebration of war, but then also going back to the worship. Okay, so it does blend that battle of blends the battle and the worship together. So in that deliverance is both a triumph over enemies and a consecration to God's glory. So last two verses here. And Adonai their God will save them on that day as the flock of his people. They will be like gems of a crown sparkling over his land. How good and beautiful it will be. Grain will make the young men thrive, and a new wine the virgin women. All right. So again, this is flowery rhetoric that Zechariah is engaging here and showing that God is going to be like the good shepherd, taking care of his flock and rescue them, protecting his people. And so again, this foreshadows the idea of Yeshua. What did he call it? He called himself the good shepherd that would lay down his life for his sheep. That's in John 10. So, and this will be like crowns, stones of a crown. So, his people, God's people, are his treasured possession. He says that in the Bible, other places, that you are my treasured possession. And so these crowns would be something that they put, or these jewels, something that adorns a crown that is the Lord's. He's showing off his people, his beautiful possession. And then he breaks into a song or into praise. He says, how good and beautiful it will be. And so I can just imagine possibly Zechariah, just praising the Lord and um, however they would do that. I don't know if they had musical instruments that they did that with or what, but that's what he's saying there. He's just praising the Lord. And then the grain and the wine are they're an agricultural reference that just means abundant prosperity. Of course, he livens it up a little bit with livens it up a little bit with the poetic verse and imagery. But so these two verses they celebrate God's saving work, and his people are like radiant jewels, and his blessings of abundant grain and wine, that, agriculturally. Um, so it points to both Israel's restoration and to the messianic age where God's goodness and beauty will overflow in his redeemed people. It's just going to be an amazing time on earth, something like we've never experienced anywhere. Mankind has just never experienced it at all since the garden. And so it's going to be a sight to behold, and just kind of think about it. Okay. Okay, there's a question. There is verse 15, the Gog and Magog war. Um, it wouldn't necessarily have to be, because you got the Ezekiel 38 war, and then it's a little fuzzy in there, and there's a lot of people that would argue back and forth one way or the other, and that's one argument that I look at and says, no, I don't think I'm just not I don't want to get into that, as it were. So I don't know a definitive answer for you on that, Mark. It's because like I said, I'm ambivalent about what that is, and I don't know exactly what they're referring to here. I could research and try to come up with something, but right off the top of my head, it could be, and maybe it's not. I don't know. So I hate to leave a question like that, because people need to have an answer, but I'm not gonna make something up and make a declaration that this is what it is, because I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. All right. So any other comments or questions that anyone might have? Yo, Rudy.
I just want to make a comment because I do read a lot of scripture and I'm still learning a lot. And yeah, everything you're saying, that's what I read in the scriptures. And I guess to what I read about Meg and Meg and Gog, it's like at the very end, like what you're talking about, the millennium, was kind of speaking about this is separate from the very end, you know, when that's like the final.
Yeah, I look at Gog and Magog as the one where Yeshua comes in and defeats them, as opposed to the endless wars that Israel seems to be having to fight. Well, they've almost been constantly at war since 1948, when they were granted statehood. And so if it wasn't an out and out shooting war, it's the terrorist wars, the Intifada, and those kinds of things. All right. Scott Laurie.
Yeah, this is a little off topic though, but just as a side note, what does Alexander the Great and Kermit the Frog have in common?
Okay, I'll bite.
They have the same middle name.
Oh boy. All right. There you go. Okay, you got me on that. All right. So,
It's not easy to get you, so that's good.
all right. Okay, so well, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to kill the live stream here, so that I think to do that I have to stop sharing, and then I can go and kill the live stream. And